Right. So today in intermediate class 2年生 we'll work on comparison in Japanese. As in, ババの方がよりor ババが一番 something. And we'll have a look at no when it's applied to adjective or nouns. Right, here we go. Right, we start with comparison when it's between two things. Between two things. So just this one or that one. For example, Japan is bigger than Denmark. How do we say this in Japanese? 日本語でなんて言いますか? Well, in English, adjectives, big, adjective in this sentence, big, should change. Big, bigger, biggest. Right? Do we have that in Japanese? 大きい in Japanese, big in Japanese, 大きい 大きや 大きest, we don't have that. We don't need to do anything with the word itself. What do we do? Well, let's have a look at, let's first find words in Japanese. Japan, 日本, right? 日本. Denmark in Japanese, デンマーク, of course in katakana. And then 大きい big, 大きい and this. 大きい is the way it is. We don't have to do anything with the or with 大きい, the adjective. The difference. So when you start with 日本, which is a subject in the English, you put の方が の方が and then than blah blah than Denmark. So this than in Japanese, again as usual, it's opposite. You have to the other way around. You start with the noun デンマーク plus より which is than. So as the very basic Japanese grammar, so as long as the particles or these の方が or より, or in this case, as long as they are properly attached to the word, together you can just replace them. For example, 日本の方がデンマークより大きいです. So when Japan is the subject, 日本の方が, you start with this one. And then than Denmark, Japan is bigger. It's a bit weird in English, but you can do that in Japanese. デンマークより日本の方が大きいです. It's the same. So both mean the same, but you can replace them. Usually, I think we usually go for the second one. デンマークより日本の方が大きいです. But it's the same. So 日本の方がデンマークより大きいです. So it was の方が after the subject, and then you put より, and then adjective is the same. So that's it. And then when you want to make a question sentence, which is bigger, Japan or Denmark, when we want to talk about it? How do we say this in Japanese? Which is bigger? どっち or どちら for the word which we use. So I think we just this one. In the 1年生 class, the first grade class, when we talked about こそあどこれそれあれどれthing, we did talk about this. So when in English you say which one, so no matter how many the things are, it's the same which one. But in Japanese, you have to distinguish if it's among like more than 3 or 100 or 1,000, or when it's only two things you're talking about. So in Japanese, when there is only two choices, you have to use どちら or どっち. Well, どちら is slightly formal. We usually say どっち. It's because it's easier to say どっち than どちら. どっち. Right. So, which is bigger, Japan or Denmark? I mean, you can start with どっちの方が大きいですか日本とデンマーク just the replacement. You don't have to worry. But usually we say 日本とデンマーク日本とデンマークと、either you can put と or without とどっちの方が大きいですかの方が comes together here. And instead of 日本 instead of the answer, you put どっち or you can also say どちらの方が or どちらが so with or without の方が sometimes we skip の方、but I mean they're just variations so we usually say which is bigger, Japan or Denmark 日本とデンマークとどっちの方が大きいですか The answer, Japan is bigger 日本の方が大きいです or when you want to say Japan is period and then you can say 日本です but Japan is bigger the whole sentence it will be 日本の方が大きいです you just drop the デンマークよりthat part right so how about comparison among three or above three or more things so as mentioned どちら or どっち they are only used when it's just about two things, two choices. So, what do we do? The choices. どれ、何、誰、いつ、どこ。You can see they are the usual question words like which one, what, who, when, where and stuff. They are used in comparison among three or more things. Let's have a look at the example. Among Japan, Denmark, and Sweden. For example, which country, which one is the biggest? Among or like Japan, Denmark, and Sweden, which one country is the biggest? Or within or among? The biggest, again, we don't have to worry about big, bigger, biggest, oki, okia, okiest. We don't say this. So oki remains the same. And Japan, 日本 to and Denmark, Denmark to and Sweden, Sweden. How do we complete the sentence to make this question? The biggest in Japanese. It's so easy that you just put 一番 which means number one, which is 一番. So whatever adjectives you use, you just add 一番 before the word. And then it becomes, for example, biggest or largest or smallest or whatever this is form in English or the beautiful, more beautiful, most beautiful, this most thing. There are some variations in English, but in Japanese, you just put 一番. It's very simple, right? So, among in Japanese. So, 日本とデンマークとスウェーデンの中で中 inside or within or among. So, の中でどこが一番大きいですかどこが So where? I mean this part you could also say どこの国 which country どの国 which country again どれが which one So there are some variations but let's say どこが So where? So the English one was which country I wrote but you can also say where is the biggest among Japan, Denmark or Sweden Right, so that's the question form, question sentence in comparison among three or more things. You might wonder when you want to use which one or what or when. For example, which do you like the best, sushi, ramen, or tempura? In this case, which can be directly translated into どれ どれ？寿司とラーメンと天ぷらの中でどれが一番好きですか？ Oh, there's some doubled here. No, I just corrected later. 寿司とラーメンと天ぷらの中でどれが一番好きですか？ So if there are some choices listed like as examples, and then we usually use which one. And the second example, what Japanese food do you like the best? So this is more like a category. So just like in English, you don't say if, you might say which Japanese food, but what Japanese food do you like? And then in Japanese as well, we say nani. The Japanese food, 日本食 and again among の中で日本食の中で何が一番好きですか？日本食の中で何が一番好きですか？ It won't be too wrong to say どれが一番好きですか？ But we usually say 何が。The last one, which season or what season do you like the best? Here, in English it says which or what. But in Japanese we usually say いつ、季節、season、季節の中でいつが一番好きですか？ You could say 季節の中でどれが一番好きですか？季節の中で何が一番好きですか？ People will get what you mean. But usually いつが一番好きですか？ Although in English you say which, what. So there are some variations or differences, but basically the same concept as in English. So that's okay. Class, we'll have a look at this adjective or noun plus no. For example, the point that we learn this here is that when you're beginner class, when you're in the beginner class, for your sake, for your practicing, we usually repeat whatever it's been said. But when you're more like fluent and naturally talking, we usually skip repeating. For example, Danish taxes are higher than Japanese ones. As in English here, instead of Japanese taxes, you use ones. So avoid repetition, avoid repeating. I'm not talking about today. Danish taxes. Danish taxes, デンマークの税金, right? デンマークの税金. Taxes, 税金ね, 税金. Higher. Higher, this is in comparison form. But again, in Japanese, it's the same as the usual adjective, which is 高い. 高い remains the same. What do we have to put between these? のほうが. So the subject, Danish taxes, this is the one who's higher. So のほうが will be followed. And as a comparison, than Japanese taxes. 日本の税金より. So, and then you put より after 日本の税金. The point here, so instead of repeating 税金 taxes, you can drop the same repeated word. So it makes totally sense when you say デンマークの税金の方が日本のより高いです without saying the same word. So that's just it. So you can do that with no. We'll have a look at another example. I have a white smartphone. I have a black one too. Well, this is actually my real situation, but I have a white smartphone. And instead of repeating the word smartphone, in English as well, you say one instead of smartphone, instead of repeating the smartphone. So we can do that in Japanese as well. 白いスマホ smartphone スマホねスマホ It's not スマホ means スマホ、白いスマホを持っています黒いのも持っています So instead of スマホ Now it's shortened and it's easier. 黒いの。黒いの。The black thing, the black one. 黒いのも持っています。白いスマホを持っています。黒いのも持っています。I mean, 持っています is also repeated, so you can actually also drop that part as well. I have a white smartphone, a black one too. 白いスマホを持っています。黒いのも、period. 黒いのも。You can. But just here, you can just see. スマホ can be replaced just simply no. Another example, and we'll be done for today. Whose smartphone is this? That's a beginner class sentence. I hope you can make this in Japanese. That's mine. So instead of saying that's my smartphone, you can say that's mine in English. How do we do this in Japanese? Whose smartphone is this? So this is the subject. これは誰のスマホですか？これは誰のスマホですか？ Whose smartphone is this? 私のです。私のスマホです。You don't have to repeat that. 私のです。はい。Okay, that's it for today. Thank you for watching. お疲れ様でした。If you want to practice Japanese with us and meet your new classmates, you're more than welcome to join us. おかえりスクール。